in the local newspapers, be sure to grab a copy this morning. Now, one thing that has come to the limelight in the past few days is press freedom. We have seen the deputy president threaten to sue a media house for that Hustlers Jet story. We have seen the Media Council of Kenya ordered a national newspaper to publish an apology to the president for reporting that he was not fit to stand for presidency. We have also seen a lot of debate in the National Assembly with some members of parliament saying things to the effect that gagging the media is an option for Kenya. Let's take a look at some of those sentiments.
The forces out there, including the national media, that are saying money has been wired, they better tell the country whether nation media is paying on behalf of the deputy president. As of today, no payment has been made, the Speaker.
The Leader of Majority has severally and passionately mentioned the issue of nation media. And quite some extent almost saying, justifying that what happened in our neighboring countries now, attack on media, is actually acceptable. I wanted to know, should we start telling our brothers in nation media to start packing their very important servers and put them away before a raid happens on them?
And no wonder the nation media, their sister station, has been closed in Uganda.
I must also tell the Nation Media Group that the freedom of expression does not extend to propaganda, Mr. Speaker, or to incitement, Mr. Speaker. Because when I look at the history, Mr. Speaker, these are the same people that were covering a demonstration in live to incite this country against this house.
A very sensitive issue. Let's now bring in Macharia, Gaitho, the chairman of the Kenya Editors Guild, as well as Sekou, Owino, a legal expert on this very important decision. Thank you for joining us in the studio this morning.
Thank you.
Mr. Gaitho, we have seen the clerk of the National Assembly. We'll comment on that clip later. Order a journalist out of the press center at the parliament. What's your take on that?
I think that's a very brazen assault on the freedom of the media, specifically the freedom of the media to cover parliament. I know they gave the excuse that they need the space, but I would call that nonsense, just an excuse. Because what they are hitting back at the way the media has been covering the agitation for extra money. As simple as that. The Constitution is very clear that Parliament must be conducted in the open and that the media must not be restrained from its coverage of Parliament. Those are constitutional guarantees. What they're trying to do is to create a situation where the media is not able to cover Parliament properly. They are saying that the media can use the press gallery. The press gallery is not enough because it is not a place you can take your tape recorders or your laptops. You still need a space from where you can watch the proceedings and work on your stories simultaneously. Without that, we are really hampered in our coverage of Parliament. And they have gone further and now even locked the media out of the restaurant. I don't think there's an issue of space there. I think it is just pure harassment.
Where will this lead? Where will this leave Kenya?
I think we will see what to do next. I think initially my gut reaction was that we should then stop covering Parliament if that is what they want. But I realized that that is what they want so that they can have the freedom to do their things in the dark, pass bills in the dark, increase their salaries in the dark, and do whatever else they want to do in the dark. So we will continue to expose them.
We have seen that clip we've just watched now. We have seen a lot of retrogressive dialogue in Parliament. One member of Parliament saying something to the effect that what happened to our sister newspaper in Uganda, the Daily Monitor, the siege for a few days, was something that was an option in Kenya. Sekou, should Kenyan media live in fear of a raid like what happened a few years ago to the standard media?
My response as a lawyer is that they shouldn't. We have a constitution that is more than double-barreled with regards to protections of the media. As and when that happens, we would then have to know that there's a constitution in this country Parliament itself needs to be reminded that nobody was born a parliamentarian. They need to be reminded that Parliament is a creation of the same constitution that accords the media the freedoms that they have. And that if they have a responsibility as Parliament, it is to ensure that the constitutional freedoms and liberties that are enshrined in the Constitution are actually supported for purposes of full enjoyment. So sitting as media and as a lawyer, I would say we have nothing to be worried about. Yes, of course, some people are acting contrary to it, but they need to be reminded that they are acting unconstitutionally, and that constitution itself has consequences for unconstitutional acts. Yes.
We have seen in the past 10 years under the Kibaki administration, a lot of steps have been made, remarkable progress in terms of press freedom. And now we are seeing this with the Jubilee government coming to power. What does that say about the Kenyatta administration?
It's very scary.
Are we going back to the dark old days?
It was under the Kibaki administration that we saw the raid on the Standard. Memories are still fresh. Now, what we're hearing from the majority leader is that this government can do exactly the same kind of thing. Now, the majority leader is not an ordinary MP or some backbencher. He is the voice of the government in Parliament. So what he says, those warnings and those threats are not dual as threats. We will take them as threats by the Uhuru Kenyatta government. And I think we would want to have assurances that such a thing cannot even be contemplated.
What should Kenyan media do? Start with you then, Sekou. What should be our response as media practitioners to what has been happening in Parliament?
I think we have to ask these parliamentarians to read the Constitution. As simple as that. And to get a basic understanding of what the Constitution is all about in terms of media freedoms, and also to understand what democracy is about. Because I think the kind of thing we're seeing is not just an assault on media freedom. We're actually seeing something I would call, we're no longer a parliamentary democracy. We're becoming a parliamentary tyranny. And I think Kenyans have to guard against that, because once you hit the media, then who do you hit next? You hit the opposition, you hit ordinary citizens, you need anybody else. You hit anybody else with a contrary voice.
The media, the job of the media is to be watchdog of society, and our job is to hold power accountable. Sekou, what do you say about our job as media practitioners? You, of course, work for a media house. What do you say about the ability of Parliament? You have seen Parliament wanting to change the Constitution, or rather to refusing to assent to some gazette notices to hike their salaries. Is it possible for them to change the Constitution? As you said, it's all in the Constitution about media practitioners.
Yes, okay, it's true. Parliament is the legislative body for the nation, the country. But I think people need to remember that we have the Constitution of Kenya 2010. And this is something that needs to be said again and again and again. It is not business as usual. The Constitution of Kenya 2010, technically speaking, was a revolution without bloodshed, and a revolution by the people. And that the only sovereign institution within that constitution are the people of Kenya. And one of the revolutionary statements within it and declarations within it was that the people of Kenya are the ultimate sovereign and the only sovereign. And they reserve for themselves, among other things, the right to make law. They actually took it up from Parliament and said, there are certain parts of this constitution that we are telling you, even you as Parliament cannot touch. One of them being the Bill of Rights, among others, wherein is the freedom of expression, freedom of information, and the freedom of the media. Okay? So I think Parliament needs to be put in its right place. Though in fairness, I must say that most of this agitation against the media appears to be coming off the National Assembly rather than Parliament as a whole, now that we have a bicameral legislature. But I think the National Assembly, as my colleague Macharia Gaitho rightly says, needs to just reread the Constitution and intellectually re-armor itself with what its position in the constitutional terrain should be. They cannot do everything, and they need to remember that these freedoms that media seeks to exercise were not given to them by Parliament because they didn't legislate them. They are the result of a referendum in constitution making. And so they need to be reminded there are certain things even you, as much as you perceive yourself as powerful, cannot touch. Your power is circumscribed by that constitution. So the media needs to go that way and to remind the whole republic that we exercise these freedoms and liberties and rights on your behalf and as a platform for the people's expression and for their right to information.
Mr. Gaitho, what does the Constitution say about regulation of the media in Kenya?
I think it is very clear. It is part of the Bill of Rights. And in fact, I have a copy here. And it puts it very plainly. And this is for the first time in Kenya when you have media freedom included in the Bill of Rights. That is section 34. Freedom of and independence of electronic media and all other types of media, electronic print and all other types of media is guaranteed. The state shall not exercise control or interference over any person engaged in broadcasting, production or circulation, publication. The state shall not penalize any person for any opinion or view or content of broadcast, publication or dissemination. Broadcasting and other electronic media have freedom of establishment, subject of course to the basic licensing procedure. As simple as that, there shall be no interference in the media. The Constitution further provides elsewhere that media shall have the right to report on what is going on in Parliament, because that is the only way citizens will know what is going on in Parliament.
And by taking that right away from media practitioners, you're taking that right away from Kenyans. Do media practitioners have the option of blacking out Parliament as a way of getting back, so to speak?
That is an option, and it is still an open. It is still open. But what we are saying is that at a time like this, when Parliament is making such critical legislation on their own self-interest, things to do with their salaries, they want a blackout so that they can do whatever they want to do in the dark without the citizens knowing what they are doing. And that is what we are saying we will not give them.
Let's go to the phone lines. We have a caller from Kakamega. Heldon. Hello. Good morning, sir. Of course, we seem to have lost that caller. Of course, if you can call if you have any questions, of course, you have to ask on this very important discussion we are having on press freedom. Now, Sekou, do you think there is political will to press freedom in Kenya?
I am not
judging by that, what we've seen.
I'm not a political analyst, but my guess from what I can see is that there isn't, okay? Or that if it is not evident in words and in action as much as the Constitution would require.
Gaitho, what's your take on that?
I would agree with Sekou. It is not evident, because what we have seen parliamentarians saying the last few days, it means that they do not want to respect the freedom of the media. It was forced on them, I would say.
Would you say that Kenya, of course, Kenya has one of the most vibrant media industries on the continent. Would you say Kenyan media is taking a bit too far, like what, I'm being the devil's advocate here. Would you say that we are taking it a bit too far, the press freedom thing?
You know, I would say it is better to have too much freedom than too little freedom. And when you have that freedom, there are no boundaries. It is up to you to push the boundaries as much as you can. I think, in fact, we exercise a great deal of self-restraint. And we have been criticized very harshly for that. You all know how we have been criticized over our coverage of the elections. Self-restraint. So really, you cannot say that we are abusing our freedoms.
Sekou, from a media practitioner point of view, you representing a media house, do you think Kenyan media, do we self-regulate?
Yes, we ought to self-regulate, and we do self-regulate to the extent that the regulations are constitutional and lawful. So, which is why I would span the argument that Kenyan media is extending its freedoms too much. You can only exercise as much freedom as there is for you to exercise within law. And that is the limit, the constitutional limit, if any. And the reason it's called freedom is because you're supposed to exercise it. You're supposed to be free to do it. And so, of all these complaints that are being raised against the media, I do not see anybody citing a specific constitutional basis and saying, this is the extent to which you have exceeded what the Constitution permits you. And so I see that the media has just been doing what it ought to do as it sees fit within the constitutional spectrum that is available.
Okay. Let's take a phone call from Kakamega. Alex. Hello, sir. Good morning.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. What's your contribution or question?
I think the members of parliament are being greedy in a manner that if they cannot support the ordinary mwananchi, it makes them as if they're the ones who went there without our assent. Therefore, I would like to say that let them know that we are going to withdraw them from the position they are now holding, because we are the people who elected them to whatever they are having. Therefore, media should be free as per the new constitution. They should know that things have changed, and this is a new Kenya. It's not the Kenya we used to have in the 90s. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. This is Alex from Kakamega supporting the media. Now, I've seen different reactions from social media, especially on Twitter. There are some Kenyans who have been criticizing the media, saying we are going a bit too far sometimes. Do you think Kenyans are behind the media in this?
I think in general Kenyans are behind the media. I think every research and every opinion poll over the last 10 years shows that the media is one of the most trusted institutions in this country. More than parliament, more than the executive, more even than the judiciary. That is not me saying it. Do an opinion poll today, and that is the result you will get.
Let's look at some some specific cases that have been raised in the past few months. We did see a local newspaper being ordered by the Media Council of Kenya to publish an apology, Sekou. The media, that particular newspaper had reported something like the president was not fit for office, and the Media Council ordered for publication of an apology. Isn't that, according to the Constitution, is that grounds enough for an apology?
Oh, okay. The Media Council, first, let's start it there, has the power to order. It's one of the remedies which an aggrieved party may seek, so that if something is published against a party which is unfair or unlawful or defamatory, for instance, then you could be ordered to publish an apology. So they have the powers. And actually the Constitution is clear that the media ought to be regulated in terms of its operations and in terms of its conduct by an independent body, which is how it should be. And that is really how, if the process pans out, I do not know whether an appeal may be preferred, so I will not speak on the limits, specifically on the merits of that case. But that really is how it ought to be, that if somebody has a complaint, like Parliament, for instance, if they thought they had a complaint, whether Parliament as a whole or individuals within it, that is where they should take their complaint. And then, one of the challenges you have, whether before the Media Council or a court, is that you state your grounds. And this matter is dealt with legally and lawfully, and everybody gets their hearing, and a decision is made. Now, from what we see, the way the National Assembly specifically was reacting, is that they do not want to take that legal path. Okay? And they're not demonstrating that this is what the media has done, which is not in accordance with the law. Instead, they are issuing threats by citing examples of tyrannical conduct across the borders and saying, we too could do this. That is the reason for the worry. The rule of law really is that if there is anything that the media has done or has failed to do that does not meet legal standard, then you challenge them on that, either before the Media Council or before a court of law. It is adjudicated upon, with everybody given their rights to be had. None of those reliefs or orders that are available include locking the media out of coverage of public institutions.
Gaitho, before you respond to that, let's talk to Kiprono from Nakuru. Hello, sir. Good morning, Kiprono.
Morning.
Yes, sir. What's your contribution to this
Okay,
issue?
my contribution is about the freedom of press.
Yes, sir. Go on.
So I want to highlight the members of parliament that what they are doing is trying to intimidate, especially the nation media group. Because one thing is, they should respect the freedom that is found. They are trying to say that there is a limit, but no. One thing even that I have come to realize is that I think that there is no space even in the parliament. I think it is a cold war. They try to say that the nation media group is trying to intimidate members of parliament, but they find later that it was like a cold war for them. So they realized that what they were doing was not right. So they later come back and say that there is no enough space in the parliament. That's why what they did is trying to remove the media, all the media. So I had all the media groups or all the media to come up and join one hand and just fight them and just expose what is being hidden by these members of parliament. Thank you very much. I'm Kiprono Bishop Nakuru.
Thank you, Kiprono. Now, we were talking about that particular case against the Star. What do you think about that?
The Media Council is a statutory body. We all subscribe to the Media Council. All media organizations in Kenya, the Editors Guild, the Media Owners Association, the Kenya Union of Journalists, the Kenya Correspondents Association, together with other interest groups like the Law Society, the churches, the trade unions, all are members of the Editors Guild. All are members of the Media Council. Now, the Complaints Commission is an independent organ within the Media Council, and we respect it because we are part of it. However, that does not mean we will always agree with its decisions, and that is why they are open to appeal. Personally, I am worried about a trend where we are seeing the Complaints Commission gagging free thought or free expression simply because you express your opinion and somebody is offended. You're found guilty. It's not just Uhuru Kenyatta. There have been a few other cases like that. I am worried about that trend because you really try to overregulate now. So, and I think these are the kind of things which should be appealed, because I think they are completely on the wrong premise. Simply because you offend somebody, you're guilty. But we have a right to offend. We have a right to offend. We have a right to give contrary opinion. That is not a crime. So those things should be looked at afresh.
The Media Council has in the past been accused of being a toothless dog. Would you agree to those sentiments currently?
Not at all. I think if you look at the number of cases it has handled and the decisions it has made, it is not a toothless bulldog at all.
Sekou, the Media Council performance.
Yes, there's a sense in which I share Macharia's views that part of what the Media Council does, yes, it is a statutory body, it has its powers, and there's a sense in which, looking at the trends in terms of the decisions that it makes, complainants there have it too easy. And they sometimes would appear like they stifle thought. Just because somebody has come and expressed the fact that he was unhappy about a particular publication or a particular statement broadcast in the media, then he gets the sense that he's entitled to some reliefs, and therefore you're ordered to apologize or the other reliefs available. That I agree with. But the good thing about that as well is that there are options. You can appeal those decisions, and let's see how those pan out.
In the past few years, social media has emerged as a very powerful tool in passing of information as well as news. How should we as Kenyans approach the issue of social media?
Well, okay, I see social media as just part of the media. I mean, it's the reality of that the technology of the times make available for us. And part of what Parliament, rather the National Assembly, for instance, needs to be aware of is that controlling the media with the technology that is available is going to be more and more difficult. So the advice I would give to them, even if unsolicited, is that you're better off dealing with the traditional mainstream media, which has ethics, okay, which has tradition and has standards that are set for themselves, so that you have a way of dealing with them. Social media, in the way it is structured, is a totally different thing. You may never even find them to complain against them at the Media Council and all the other complaints channels that are available to you. And that therefore, if you created the traditional media, as we call it, and supported them and enabled them and created an understanding with them, you're better off, because then you get the opportunity of a double barrel cooperation with them, rather than having social media, which is unregulated, be the main force for platforms of information dissemination. Yes.
So Gaitho, the fact that or rather the Nation Media Group has been mentioned, of course other media houses have been mentioned, are at loggerheads with the powers that be. Does that mean as Kenyan media we are doing something right?
I think as Kenyan media we're doing almost everything right. We will make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But those are not mistakes that call for drastic action or reactions. Kenya media basically, I think, has been very, very responsible by and large, apart from a few what we call the gutter press, which like social media are difficult to regulate. But I think there's no point trying to regulate what you might call the unregulatable. Deal with the established mainstream registered media houses, and I think all of them in Kenya are doing a very good job. As for social media, it has brought a whole new ball game. It has made many of our institutions in terms of regulatory processes redundant, because it falls under the radar. But it is also making much of the traditional media redundant in terms of the speed and the freedom within which it operates. You can't kill it, you have to learn to live with it.
Yes. Let's talk to Mercy from Kiambu. Hello, Mercy.
Yeah, hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Yeah, I would like to make my contribution.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm saying the media was a powerful, effective tool during the campaign.
Yes,
and then please use the media to show us where they were campaigning. And if they're not doing anything wrong in Parliament, why would they block the media out of Parliament? So it's a shame on their part. And they're very dishonest people. So media should be allowed, and you have the back of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mercy. As we wind up, gentlemen, 50 years, Kenya is celebrating 50 years this year. With the steps that have been made in terms of media freedom over the years and what has been happening in Parliament, Kenyans are thinking that we are going back to the dark old days. What would be your message to the powers that be in terms of press freedom in Kenya today?
I think I would ask them to remember that we are going to 50 years old. We cannot go back to the behavior of that one-party state mentality. There will always be a divergence of opinion. Those constitutional guarantees cannot be taken away. And the other thing is that freedom, whether it is media freedom or freedom of the citizens to think and talk and assemble, it is not a gift from the government. Those are inalienable rights. And as Sekou said, Parliament cannot take away the Bill of Rights. So however much they may make noise in Parliament, they're actually quite impotent when it comes to any laws that they may think will restrain our freedoms. It is better to accept that that is the reality of today and live with it.
Thank you, Gaitho. Your last word, Sekou.
Yeah, the same thing. That we have a constitution that sees Kenya in a particular way. And this is how it sees Kenya. It sees Kenya in which the public officials, irrespective of the office they hold, are accountable act in accordance with the constitution, or else there are consequences. If it's a member of parliament, he can be recalled. If it's in the executive, he can be impeached. A governor can be recalled. Nobody is above this constitution. Everybody must live within it. The media freedoms, freedom of speech and expression, the freedom of the media to operate freely, operationally, and the freedom of information, that is their right to seek information for purposes of performing their duties, are inalienable. They are confirmed by the Constitution to be, technically speaking, beyond Parliament and unassailable, and therefore Parliament has to learn to live with them and to remember that those liberties do not exist to make any particular individual happy in this country. They're just to be exercised for the fullest enjoyment of the citizenry. Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. Great talking to you this morning. I've been talking to Sekou, Owino and Macharia Gaitho on the very important issue of press freedom in Kenya today. You're watching AM Live. Our trend this morning is freedom. Keep it here. We're back shortly after the break.